Senate Bill 323, a bill to amend and reenact 18.2-308.2:2 of the Code of Virginia relating to handgun purchases, eliminate limitation on handgun purchases.
Senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 323 is the repeal of the one handgun a month bill. This basically would repeal the current law that's in place prohibiting the purchase of more than one handgun. Many questions, I think, arise throughout the course of this debate over the handgun about gun trafficking. Currently, under federal law, anyone who purchases more than one handgun per month or more than one handgun has to fill out a federal firearms permit in order to do that, which allows the federal government to track more than one of these handguns purchased at a time. Crossing state lines, if someone doesn't have a federal firearms license, they're prohibited under federal law from being able to purchase a handgun if they live across state lines. Basically, currently today under this law, we have many carve-outs that have occurred. Law enforcement, regardless of whether they're using it for line of duty or not, can purchase more than one handgun. Also, you can apply with the state police and purchase a permit that will last for 7 days in order to exempt you from purchasing more than one handgun. And also, if you currently have a concealed handgun permit, you can also purchase more than one handgun per month, which allows about 287,000 permit holders to do so. Basically, this is allowing someone who we're saying is legal that has a handgun permit to purchase one anytime or more than one anytime they want, but in 5 years when their handgun permit expires, we're saying that they're no longer able to do it even though they're still law-abiding citizens. Basically, this bill this law, repealing this law will bring us in line with other states. Virginia, California, Maryland, and New Jersey are the only states currently that have one handgun a month, and hope it's a pleasure to the body to pass the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Western Fairfax, Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
Well, this is my 20th anniversary. This bill represents the 20th anniversary of my entry into the political world. I remember sitting home in Fairfax and watching this bill being debated back in 1991, 1992, and listening to a member of the legislature stand up and in response to information that the majority of homicides in New York were committed with Virginia guns, and basically saying, that's not our problem, that's New York's problem. And immediately our nation's motto popped into my head, e pluribus unum, one out of many. We have obligations to each other. We're neighboring states. We were creating a nightmare for New York. All of us, I'm sure, watched the Super Bowl the other day. We're watching the ads, and I support the Second Amendment too, Mr. President, but we had the mayor of Indianapolis and the mayor of New York City asking that we do something about this gun business in terms of the exchange of firearms in this country and the loose regulations that we have, or at least the unenforceability of it. Now, we all have different experiences. Mine comes from 30 years working in the juvenile court and in the juvenile justice system. And what my experience has been is that kids who get involved in gun crimes, they don't go out and try to find a gun because they want to commit a gun crime. The gun finds them. And when you all of a sudden have a gun in your possession, you don't plot a shoplifting. That's how weapons offenses take place. When I was explaining this to one of my workers at the juvenile detention center, what was going on in Virginia and about the bill coming up, he said, oh yeah, Dave, I lived in New York City. That's how we made money during college. We'd come down to Virginia during the summer, buy a bunch of guns, take them back to New York, and sell them on the street for 2.5, 3 times their worth. I said, well, how'd you do that? He said, well, we'd just find some guy with a driver's license who could go in and buy them for us. So my concerns here are that we're getting back into a situation where what problem are we trying to solve? You know, crime has been down dramatically ever since we passed that law here and nationwide. I don't think that's certainly the only reason that it's down. But we could put a situation here where we're just seeding the world with more guns that aren't necessary, that kids are going to get a hold of, criminals will get a hold of, and I think this is an ill-advised way to go. I think we ought to keep the law right the way it is, and I would appreciate everyone to vote no on this bill. Let's be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from Northern Fairfax, Senator Howell.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the past several years, all of us, including you, Mr. President, and the governor and members of the legislature from both parties, have been working on economic development. We want to convince everyone about how competent we are in Virginia and how civilized we are in Virginia. In the years I've been here, we've had a number of slogans, some that come to mind. Virginia, mother of presidents. Virginia, Internet capital of the universe. Virginia is open for business. Virginia is for lovers. And now, Mr. President, with the passage of this bill, we can have yet another slogan. Virginia, gun runners' paradise. Yes, sirree, Mr. President. Getting rid of reasonable gun control measures will put our state on the map, and it will attract all of those fine gun-running businesses to our beloved Commonwealth. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, one of the tritest cliches that ever sweeps its way across this chamber is I didn't intend to speak on this. I think it's important when you start talking about the history of one gun a month that it's extremely important that you get a realistic perspective on it. And I remember that piece of legislation very vividly because my former seatmate, the Lord High Sheriff Extraordinary of Virginia Beach, and I were on the forefront of that legislation, even though we were freshman senators at that time, and it was under the Wilder administration. And I further recall the former Senator Stolley and I working with the former Attorney General Richard Cullen, who was involved on the task force that was advocating that. And I would say, Mr. President, that I would remind the senator from Western Fairfax County that those were very different times back in 1992 and 1993. Since the passage of those years, that there has been considerable tightening down on background checks. And what was going on then, just to give you a realistic perspective of what was happening, was that they had a triangle going that involved guns, money, and drugs. And that, in fact, was what has feeding it. It has been interesting to me since that period of time, the number of states that have backed away from one gun a month. And their reason is that they have found that there are other mechanisms that are chilling, at least to some extent, those who would intend to try to abuse the purchase of firearms. I find it interesting that the comment was made, in essence, that there were those in college who figured out how to circumvent this. We would just go find somebody with a driver's license and do it. There is absolutely nothing that is going to prohibit something like that from happening now. And you just are delusional if you think that that is a salient argument to offer. But I would say, Mr. President, I find it very interesting what my dear friend just commented about economic development. You know, Virginia is consistently being recognized as one of the best places to do business in Virginia. And, you know, we're not just competing against those 3 states that are the residual retainers of one gun a month. We're competing against the other 47 states that do not have one gun a month. And interestingly enough, those states that have managed to squeak us out, in the best place to do business, are not one of those 3 states that retain the one gun a month law. It is the states that do not have that law, So I suggest to you that with all due respect, I don't think that we're going to have a new moniker about Virginia and our economic development opportunities. And I say, Mr. President, in closing, I fought very hard along with Senator Stolley and others in this chamber that have remained around for a few years to do that one gun a month law. And I respect it. And I would say that it may surprise some of you how I vote based on my comments. But I think it's very important to keep a realistic perspective on what took place, and things are remarkably different in 2012 in the world of gun purchasing than they were in 1992 and 1993.
Thank you, Senator. Senior Senator from Fairfax, Senator Sass-Law.
Mr. President, the senator from James City County is right about one thing. There's nothing that's going to stop somebody with a driver's license from doing that now, but there is a difference. Difference is that driver's license, when they go in there, only gets them one gun a month and not, as many guns as they want. The genesis of this bill, and Senator Norman was right. Senator Stolley, I think, was the sponsor of the bill that Senator Wilder Governor Wilder had sent down. This was done largely, if you remember, those of you who were here, not a lot of you, at the requests of the then mayor of New York. And I think it was Dinkins, but I'm not sure. That they were, quite frankly, just sick and tired of seeing every time they were at a crime scene, the gun came from Virginia. Now, those states, may or may not have had that law then, but it was the Virginia guns that were showing up there, and that's why it got enacted. Now, the fact that crime has dropped, seems to be dropping dramatically all around the east coast of the country, and I'm not going to attribute it to one gun a month. It didn't hurt. It's the way things are, and we've got better means of policing now than we had before, and we've got mandatory sentencing and no parole, which keeps the recidivism down to a low rate. The fact is, I just don't know what good possibly comes of this from the standpoint of crime control by having more and more guns. And this thing that I get the emails that everybody else gets. This will protect me in my house. Well, in the last 20 years, if you could only purchase one gun a month, one handgun a month, and keep in mind that law never applied to rifles, if you could only purchase one gun a month, right now, you would only be able to have in your house 240 handguns. Now, if you need more than 240 handguns, I'd submit something's wrong with you, okay? Something has gone terribly wrong in your life. So, anyways, I would hope we'd leave the law the way it is, and I've not heard a real good reason on why we should change it. Thank you, Mr. President, for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Question is, shall the bill pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The bill passes.